This video will teach you the basic principles of reading a Colourwork chart. I will be using as an example a chart from my Turner cushion pattern, but the basic principles remain the same no matter what Colourwork chart you are working with. If for any reason a designer formulates their charts differently to this, they should explain that in their pattern. So, in a Colourwork chart, each square of the grid represents a stitch, and there should be a key in the pattern explaining what each colour represents. In these charts, the main colour is grey and the contrast colour is white. So the first thing to know when reading a chart is that you always start with the bottom row. So your first row is down here, your next row is here, and the final row that you will work is this top one. The next thing to know is whether you read your chart from left to right or from right to left. This depends on whether you're knitting flat or in the round. A right side row is always read from right to left, and a wrong side row is read from left to right. So, if you are knitting in the round, where every row is a right side row, you're going to read every row of the chart from right to left. If you are knitting flat, you will be alternating between right side and wrong side rows, and so you will also alternate the direction in which you read the chart. The easiest way to tell which direction you should be reading the rows in your chart is to look at the position of the row numbers. The row number is typically positioned at the start of the row. So if you are working a right side row and reading the chart from right to left, the row number will be on the right. And if you are working a wrong side row, reading the chart from left to right, the row number is on the left. So in this first chart, those numbers alternate, which means this chart is designed to be knit flat. In this second chart, the numbers are all on the right, which means that it is a chart to be knit in the round. Next, you need to be able to identify whether your chart has a repeat. A repeat is shown by a box being placed around part of the chart. If you don't have a box around part of your chart, there is no repeat. So, this middle chart does not have a repeat, which means that the chart literally has one square for every stitch on your needles. So, if you were working this chart, you would have 11 stitches on your needles, and each box in the chart would tell you how to work the corresponding stitch. However, if you are working a pattern which has a lot of stitches in each row, a chart which has one box for every stitch can become incredibly unwieldy. The chart becomes massive. Repeats solve this problem, and that is what this final chart does. So, when there is a repeat in a chart, you will knit all of the stitches represented by the squares inside of the box multiple times throughout the row. Any stitches represented by squares outside of the box you will only work once, and I'm going to demonstrate this now using a chart from my Turner cushion. So this is the chart that I'm using, and as you can see the row numbers are all down the right hand side, which means that it is knit in the round. So we are reading every row of the chart from right to left. This section here is the repeat. So when you are working from a chart with a repeat, you knit each stitch before the repeat once. So when I knit this round, I will knit this stitch and this stitch and this stitch. And then you work the repeat until you have as many stitches left in the round as are on the other side of the repeat. So here there is one stitch after the repeat. This means I will work this whole repeat, and you should always work a repeat in its entirety. You shouldn't work a partial repeat. So you will work these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stitches again and again until you are left with just one stitch, and then you will work the final stitch in the chart. So let's put this into practice. Here I have my Turner cushion cover. And the one unusual thing about this pattern is that you work the chart twice in every round, once between the beginning of round marker and this marker at the halfway point, and once going back from this halfway point marker to the beginning of round. So here I am at the beginning of round and I have worked the first 2 stitches in my main colour, which is this green. And that is equivalent to these first 2 boxes in the bottom row of my chart. Now I need to work 1 stitch in my contrast colour, which is this cream. And now I am on to the repeat. For the repeat, I work 3 stitches in my main colour, followed by 1 in my contrast colour. And I do that 3 times per repeat. I have worked my first 12 stitch repeat, and I'm going to keep working those 12 stitches until I have 1 stitch left before my halfway point marker. I have just finished my final repeat, so I have 1 stitch left before the marker. That means that it is time for me to work this final stitch in my main colour. And then I will have finished that row of the chart. For most patterns, you will finish the chart at the end of the row or round. With the Turner gloves, for example, the chart finishes at the beginning of round. However, like I say, for this pattern you work the chart twice in every round. So I am going to slip my marker and come back to this first section on the bottom row of my chart and work that row of the chart again. Once I have done that and returned to the beginning of round, I can go up to the next row of the chart and work that one in exactly the same way.